Well, welcome to Wednesday Women's Wine Time. Thank you all for joining me live, and for those people that are listening back onto the recording, welcome. We're so excited to have you here. My very, very special guest tonight is the gorgeous Deb Fay. She was actually the person who published my beautiful book, Becoming a Butterfly. So there it is there. You can see on the side that, it's a little bit small. Disruptive publishing is what the, because it used to be something else, didn't it?
Yeah, it did.
Yeah. So maybe we could start with that, with the name change, because that was a big
Interesting.
thing.
Yeah, it was. That's a story in and of itself. So the business actually has, I think it sort of gives it a bit of personality. It was MJL Publications because it grew out of my counselling business, and my counselling business was called My Juicy Life. So when I started into the publishing, I just called it MJL Publications. And that was fine, but nothing spectacular about it. And then I was working with a business coach, and I felt drawn to approach someone who was not my target market and say to them, you need to write a book, and this is what you need to call it. And I was exploring with my business coach, why was I drawn to that person? Because they're so far from they're not only so far from my target audience, they're actually far from really anyone that I would like to work with. So I was a bit intrigued as to what that, and I really felt like compelled to go and speak to them, and just followed that, of course. And what came of that when we dug deeper into that was this person was talking about disrupting the status quo, and for very good reasons. And so what came was, the thing with all the authors that I work with, I mean, look at Trish, look at yourself.
Yep.
You're all rebels to some degree. You're all shifting people's mindsets. Yes, good on you, Trish. You're shifting people's mindsets.
It's important to note here, Trish, obviously you have worked a lot with Deb. So a lot of the books that are sitting behind you, Deb has helped you publish, has she not? 4 books, yeah. Sorry, Deb. I just thought it was important to say that, you got such...
Plus Get Known, Be Seen, there's 5. Oh, yes, that one, yep. Yes, very cool. Trish and I actually work really well together, don't we, Dal? And Trish is a bit naughty, but honestly, what I that's what I like about her.
Sorry, myself.
We're actually friends. We actually are sort of.
We're very good friends, and I love that Trish is a bit naughty. It makes it very interesting, and that was the attraction that I had with this fellow. So when I figured that it was actually the rebel in people that drew me to them, that was where I sort of connected with people. Disruptive publishing just came. So and it was right. It was perfect, and I don't not had anyone go. People, if they're drawn to it, they're drawn to it for a reason, and it's because there's a part in them that wants to shake things up.
I love that. I love the name. I think it's an incredible name. And I was going through your website, and you were describing disruptive publishing, and it was that shaking things up. And I think that's when when somebody you don't just publish anything. There's a lot of authors that you have and that you've published who have really just kind of shook the boat, should we say. Can you tell us a little bit more about the type of books that you like to publish, that you feel drawn to publish? Some people maybe that you've worked with.
Absolutely. What I would say first is just that you're probably not what I would say is my target market. You're probably a little bit younger. I like the old girls like me and Trish.
I came on tonight for a reason. I do not know what.
So to further explain that, I guess the person that I'm attracted to and who's attracted to me is the person who has had more life and had the opportunity to have the sort of life experience that's made them forge a path of their own. You just happen to have done that at a younger age. But if I was to describe my ideal client, they would be older than you, Jess.
Okay.
Yeah, so
say that you don't work with like younger people, though, is it?
no, it's about that. It's about the experience, and it's about that little bit of rebellion that's there. And exactly. And I think when we recognize each other, we just see it, and that's it. We just know it's there. And it's like, okay, what do we need to do now to get this happening, to make this happen? So hence the reason that particular male, it was a male that I was actually talking to for starters, and have no desire to work with males in particular, because I just find them different. And I love the way women think. I love the way they process through things generally. You can't always generalize, but and this particular person is a very rough man's man, so like total opposite of what I would be looking for. And it's just that he's had experiences, and it brought out the rebel in him, and that's where we really connected. And that's what I look for with people, and they're looking for me too, because they're looking to express and share what it is that they've gone through, what it is that they've learned. They've got a deep calling to help other people and connect with other people in that space. That probably pretty much sums it up. And it's just that yearning that I need to say something. It's important. It's not about being disruptive for the hell of it. It's about doing it for a reason. And I do have on my website that quote, disruption is not, what is it? Disruption is not, to think about that. It's an invitation to a new norm, is what it is. It's, inviting people to, it's inviting people to step into something that might be a little bit uncomfortable or unusual for them, but there is a really good reason for it, because the status quo is not working anymore, or not working for them, or it's not meant to be for everybody. I imagine you attract people that are not what I would call normal. That's a compliment.
You know what my mum used to say to me ever since I was a little girl, because I used to come home from school and I'd be like, hands on hips, why can't our family just be normal? And she's like, honey, normal's just the setting on a washing machine. You ain't never going to be normal.
Yeah.
I just found that quote, disruption is not a threat. It's an invitation.
It's not a threat.
You normal, by Danielle Strickland.
Yes.
And I think that's a fabulous, fabulous quote. I love it. When I read that, I was like, oh, I love that. I'm going to have to put that somewhere, because it's such a fantastic quote.
Yep, spread the word.
Yeah. Deb, can you tell me, you weren't always, a publisher. You weren't always there to help people, get their stories out there. What made you get into this? Like, why did you feel that this was part of your journey?
I wanted to be a published author from the time I was probably 13, 14. I did teach myself to read when I was younger. I didn't speak for many years. And when I did start speaking, I think I was learning to read at the same time. Books have always been, I've just loved them always. So is there anyone here that doesn't love books? Like, seriously? And I'm looking at Trish. I know she loves her books. It's a passion. And so I started journaling in my early teens, and I knew then I wanted to write books. Didn't know what about, didn't know who for, just knew I wanted to write books. And it must have been 48, a friend of mine, we'd been on a similar journey, reducing all the toxins in our personal care, in our foods, for various reasons. And we both of us knew a lot, but for a long time I was really mentoring her along that path. And then one day I realized she knew more than me. And I said to her, you just need to go into business, and you need to help other people. Just go into their homes and help go through their pantry, go through their laundry cupboards, explain to them why this and why not that, and just educate them, because there's a lot of people looking for that, that have health issues, developmental issues with their kids. Anyway, I said, I'll help you get started, and we knew a lot of other people on the same path, of course. You tend to attract people that are doing similar things. And I said, I'll help you. We'll just do a little PDF of a few different stories from different people, be able to give it away off your website and let people know what the possibilities are. And then we collected those stories, and I thought, I'll just have a little look and see what exactly would it take to publish this, like print it, and found a print on demand platform that hadn't been around for very long. In fact, when one of the two biggest companies, when I first published that one of the two biggest companies was just having its first birthday. And there was Amazon and Ingram Spark. Ingram Spark was just a year old. So that's how early that sort of technology was. And I wouldn't have done it without my son, my techie son, who got me through about 3 or 4 different stumbling blocks. I probably would have given up. But he was able to help me. And once that was done, it was like, whoa, this is great fun. And it's not that much different to what I do. So as a counsellor, I was helping people to work through their stories. Now, and I've always had that belief that, whatever happens to you in life, you can turn your disadvantages into advantages. It's about perspective. It's about getting the right healing and support. It's also about purpose. So I've really just taken that on board, and I'm just helping people to use their stories now to help others as well as themselves.
So I noticed on your website there, that you work with a variety of people, but you really talk about, people who want to leave a legacy, people who have a story to share, people who have, had things happen that, can possibly help other people. What kind of people, can you maybe elaborate on that? Like who should publish a book is basically what I'm getting at. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Look, there's lots and lots of different reasons to publish. There's 2 main reasons that I see, and that's just my perspective, and that's just my tastes. One is education and one is entertainment. And if you can do the 2 of them together, then I think that's the perfect book. I mean, even just looking at the screen here at Trish, Trish has had some amazing experiences in her life. She has so much knowledge to share. That tiny little head with the purple hair there is full of gold, seriously. Why should she be walking around carrying that and not sharing it with other people? She loves expressing herself. She loves talking, and really books are it's just talking to a much broader audience when they're not in front of you. So I guess, if that elaborates for you, Trish probably is the ideal person to be writing and publishing books, and lots of them, Trish, just saying. Lots more than you've already done.
Yeah, I mean, if it's okay, Trish, can you just maybe tell us, I think when people think, oh yeah, I've got a book in me, but Trish, you've published multiple books. You have really, you haven't just got one book inside you, you've got multiple. Can you tell us a little bit about, what sort of topics, because I think people are thinking, yeah, I've only got one, it's just my story. But
everyone's got lots.
Yeah, it's not like that at all.
Trish has just discovered that she's got lots. That's the thing. She realizes it. Yeah.
Look, you may have one story, but the thing is, one story that you have has many different windows into that story, many doors into that story. So just saying I've got one story, you might write your book of one story, but when you open your eyes and open your soul, you realize that there are many ways for people to touch you in that story. Some people go through one window, some people will go through another door. And that means you've got multiple opportunities to share that particular way in that story, that little bit journey into that story in that particular book. So sometimes the books I'm in are pure education. So it's a really, this is how you can do this, this is what you can do. Then there's others where the story comes from how to start your business. The story comes from how to overcome your mindset to start, how to have 60 seconds of insane courage. There are all different ways and journeys into basically the one story. So it's just sharing it for different people. The one that I'm currently writing that's keeping me up at 1 a.m. every morning came out of speaking on an online summit. And some of these people on this online summit decided they wanted to pick 25 people to put their stories into a book. And it's all about your why. And it's to encourage women to start their business and share their why and become a coach.
That's going to
My
be
story
awesome.
is my story, but my story this time is focused around why. So that's a little bit about why I write books.
And what happens then is there in every single one, in every aspect of the story that Trisha's talking about, there is a connection. And there might be a connection with similar people, but it's still different people with each one. And the power in that is phenomenal. I get excited about that.
I hope that answered your question, Jess.
No, it's perfect. Trish, can you just maybe tell us like a couple of titles of your book so people can maybe get an idea of the diversity? That's, I guess, what I'm trying to get at is that there's so much diversity that you can write about. So could you share maybe like 3 or 4 titles behind you? Because I know you've got so many. Can you share 3 or 4 titles with us?
That's about 16 now.
Yeah, 16. I've got 16 and 3 others coming out. 4 now because I'm doing this compilation, which remember I said I wasn't going to do another compilation. Anyway,
yep.
Get Known, Be Seen.
Yep.
That is Deb and I. That's our baby. It's how to write your book and then how to leverage it with giving a value for other authors. So that story is about, it's Deb's story about how, and it's my story about what to do with your book. And we encourage others.
So sorry, can I just ask you, Trish, is that a type of book that people who are looking at writing might benefit
Yep.
from?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Because it's got, the first chapter is Deb with a really beautiful way of how to write your book and how to, all the timelines, and it's a fantastic chapter. It's got all her knowledge in there.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next 10 chapters are from authors that we brought together for this expo, and it's their stories on their backstories on their book and how they write their book. So you're going to get a lot of valuable out of all those different stories. And of course, the most important story is at the end, because that's my chapter about how to take all your books and when you write them, how to repurpose and leverage them and to share them with your audience. So it's a really awesome book.
Yeah.
That one is Touched by Breast Cancer. Now, that's my compilation. That's my story going through breast cancer. And I invited other authors and people who went through to share their stories. So that is a completely different one. It's an inspirational book, very much a motivational book. But that's still my story. But it's my story based on how I got through breast cancer and how I use what I know, my knowledge to do that. That one is a compilation book that rose out of and taught me a lesson: never take on a project that is not my own. Because that was a compilation that I did a chapter for someone who was wanting to do Better Woman, Better World. And it was all women sharing their whole, their journey and what they did. And then it was a whole lot of people in the book and things just went to pot. It's why you should be careful who you write your chapters with. And so these people came to me and said, you know, we got together and said they wanted to have their story in the book, and it was to be printed, and it hadn't done. And for some peculiar reason, the person who compiled the first book decided to assign all the rights to me. And I think I must have killed somebody in a later life for her to do that. So that took me 12 months to pull together a project that was not mine, but these people wanted their stories, and it's a different one again, because it's coming from, as a woman, believing myself and how I'm there in the world. That one is pure me, as in, this is my business. This is creating confident communicators. It's talking about speaking. It's talking about communicating and it's a great book for organizations, businesses, and people. It covers everything that you need to know. So that's that. This one is another one I learned a lesson over, but it's a really great book. It's an awesome book. It's a co-author book. And this is, again, a compilation between two people, and it's a business storytelling book. So it's how to repurpose and leverage your book. Ones that are not on there was a compilation which was how to be an entrepreneur. And I wrote the chapter on speaking as an entrepreneur. The other one is, there's two that are journals. So I've submitted a short paragraph in a journal book, which is really hard for me to do a short paragraph in 100 words. It's really hard, but I did.
You're parenting a child on the spectrum too.
Oh yes, I forgot that one. There's parenting a child on the spectrum, which is really, for me, way out, completely out of what I usually do. But I was honored to be asked to do a chapter. I don't have a child on the spectrum. And these people, their stories are absolutely freaking awesome. And I was asked to do a chapter. So my chapter in that is on how to be an advocate for your child when you have a child on the spectrum. So I put a different perspective on speaking and focused on speaking as an advocate and for standing up and speaking for your child when you really want to have that passion and speak for your child.
That was the first time we worked together that I first saw
that was the
Trisha's writing.
Yeah. And so those are some of my books. The three that I've got coming out is this compilation, which I said I wasn't going to do any more compilations this year, and someone in India and someone in America and Scotland and Canada all say, can you please contribute a chapter? And you've already spoken on their summit. You can't get out of that. So I did that one. And I have A to Z of public speaking, which is actually, that's going to be titled Journey of an Introvert Speaker, A to Z of public speaking. It's about 3/4 finished. And then one that is a very personal one is my story about Craig. And that is Darkest Before Dawn. So, and I've got about 4 others that I'm going to do at some stage.
Is that what you're going to call your chapter, Darkest Before Dawn?
My book, Craig's book.
Oh, are you going to do that separate to the...
Oh, yeah. The other one is Forever Changed by Suicide. That's the compilation one. And it'll probably be called... No, actually, in the chapter in Forever Changed by Suicide will be called Remembering Craig in that chapter, that book. And those are very dear to my heart because that's a book where I've been gathering authors to contribute their memories, their thoughts about people that they may have been touched by suicide in some way, shape or form. And yeah, Craig's story is my story about Craig. It's my big one about what happened, how it happened, my thoughts. But that one comes from a vow that I made 2 days, on a week after, to never let anybody forget Craig's name. So those are some, it's a very wide variety.
Yep, very wide variety.
And,
you've experienced so much, and I think it's a beautiful thing that you're doing, is gifting all of that knowledge and all of that experience to people who need it. And I think that's a beautiful thing about becoming an author. I really do.
The thing is, every one of you sitting here, everyone out there, have all those stories that need to be there for people. And that's why I love what Deb does, because she finds those stories for you.
Beautiful. Deb, I wonder if we can move into the publishing process, because I know that's what everybody kind of wants to know about. I think I want to write a book. So what the heck do I do next?
Okay, so I think I want to write a book. So I guess the first thing is to figure out what you want to write, who you want to write to. And I say to as opposed to for, because it makes a difference in the way you write when you write to someone. What would you want to achieve with that? Because like if you just want to write a romance story or something like that, there are, I guess, formulas which you can go and research and you can find out. So, you know, what would be the formula for getting a story down? And then who would I go to? Would I self-publish it? Would I go to a publisher? What are the I guess the demands? So whichever way you decide to go, what formats do I need to look at? So there's probably quite a bit involved, and but it really does start with very simply going, okay, what exactly do I want to do? Who do I want to do it for? Who do I want to write to? And you know, what is it that I want to achieve with this? And mostly for me, it's working with people that are writing nonfiction. So they're writing their own stories, or they're writing about their own experiences rather than a fiction, which is, you know, it's a whole different ball game. And that's why I don't go to that at this stage. Having said that, I'm really actually looking forward to, I've started learning about writing 2 different genres I would like to write fiction for. One is mysteries, murder mysteries, and the other is romance. So I'm doing some research into that now, but that's totally different to, so, you know, like what you've done, Jess.
Yep.
You had a lot of your story done, and then it was just a case of learning, you know, what the process was, how to organise the knowledge that you had. That's a really important thing. And that's probably the question that I probably get most from people is, you know, exactly how do I lay out in my book what I know in a way that makes a book? So that really comes back to what do you want to achieve? And then there are formulas, as you know, I've worked with you. There are formulas for getting that information down that actually help to engage different types of readers at the right time in the right way, so that you can take your ideal reader with you right from the beginning right through to the end of your book. Once that's done, then it's the editing process. And I do have a little saying, you know, don't get it right, get it written, because your editor can actually sort a lot of stuff out for you. So once your story is down, they will help you to shape it in a way. I mean, some people don't need that as much as others do, but they will certainly help you to shape your story in a way that gets the message across clearly, just to help you reach the objectives that you want to achieve with your book. And then we have to get ourselves organised with layout, make sure that the formatting is right for the printing. Perhaps if you're just going to do an ebook, that's not as big an issue. It's a different issue. Preparing for ebook is, there are some things that you have to worry about with ebook formatting that you don't have to worry about with printing, and then vice versa. The thing with today is, with whether you're doing an ebook or doing a printed version, because we have print on demand, you can take that imperfect action. I mean, obviously you do the best that you can to make sure that your book is in the best possible condition and state before you publish. But it's so easy now to change something. If you find you missed something, it's so easy to go back and change it. And then every book that's printed from then on is the new version. It's not like in the old days you would get thousands of copies printed. If there was a mistake in there, it was just too bad. Or, you know, if it was a really bad mistake, you'd have to throw them out and start again. So big investment. It's just not like that anymore. And even in that way, I'm a little bit disruptive. I know there are editors and people who do the layout for books that don't work the way I do. They work in the traditional way. So I'm a little bit of a maverick in that way. And I know there's been a few people are a little bit annoyed with the way that I work, but there's just no need to do things the way we've always done things. No need at all anymore. So life has changed in publishing, and it's a good thing, because what it means is we can all have a voice. We don't have to get, have permission from anyone. If you want to write your story, you write your story, and then you just find out what you need to do to get it published. That's all there is to it. And we all have media. Social media is called social media for a reason. It's a media for, sharing what you've written, what you want to say. You can make lovely little ebooks, make lovely big ebooks, and you can sell them off your social media sites, off websites. So you don't even have to be going like to Amazon or any of the platforms. So opportunities abound. I think it really is just a step-by-step thing. Get started, figure out what it is that you want to do with your book, start working towards that. If you have a plan, you're going to waffle less and you're going to stay on track. So, if you know your book's going to be about this and it's for this particular audience, that's a good start. Just keep thinking of them, keep them in mind as you're writing. And you might find other stories will come up that probably aren't, they can be for another book. Because once you start, like, I don't know about you, Jess, now that you've published,
yeah,
is it as big and scary and I don't know, unachievable as what you thought it was to begin with?
Do you know what? I was, today I was sort of thinking about that because, having you as a guest speaker tonight, I was like, I wanted to really delve into what it felt like before our conversation. So what happened was Paula, who is Kara's stepmom, who is another published author through Deb, I've known for quite a long time. She published a book through Deb, and I was like, oh my gosh, wow! Like, I was just in awe that she could do such a thing, and I was like,
you at her book launch?
No.
Okay, so I'm just wondering, I didn't meet you then. That's why.
She was writing it when I was going to one of Kara's dress fittings. And so she was telling me about some of the challenges, and Paula is just a delight. Like, I really get along really well with Paula. And I just thought, like, wow, I was almost like starstruck, like just in awe of her. And I was like, oh, I'd love to do that one day. And then finally it was the time when I felt ready. And I had enough time in my schedule that it might be something that I could look at. And I was like, Paula, please get me in touch, like, with someone that can help me. And then she said, look, yeah, I'll connect you with Deb. And I decided to get in touch with you, and we had a conversation, and it was really easy going. And it was just, I'd half written one book, which is the one that's been published, but I'd written a full book already. And it was just a really, I just remember getting off the conversation and just going, like, it was just a sigh of relief that it was achievable. And it wasn't this, far-fetched dream. And it was like, I just felt really connected with Deb, and I felt like it was the right kind of person that I wanted to work with. And it was a really special conversation that we had. And one of the beautiful things about working with Deb was that I really, coming from being a bit of a perfectionist in the past, was that I had to have everything perfect. And I remember Deb said to me one day, she said, Jess, if you're going to get it really perfect the first time, we're going to miss out on a lot of that emotion and a lot of those describing words and the way that you felt in that moment. So just sit at your computer and just type away exactly how you felt. And if you make a mistake on the word, or if you miss out on a word, or if the sentence doesn't make sense, who cares? We can fix that up later. Just get that emotion onto paper. And I think, honestly, that has made the world of difference to my book, because when I've gone back and I've read my book 20 million times, but when I've gone back and read over my book, I'm like, holy moly, like, where did these emotional, because it is quite an emotional book, where did this description or where did these emotions come from? And I really think that that was attributed to those words that you said to me, Deb, that, you know, just get it down there and work out the funky verbal funky stuff later. And I'm so grateful for that advice.
Yeah, I'm pleased to hear that feedback. That's great.
And I think the other thing about working with you was that you were just so, and I know that a lot of other ladies in the, because you run a writer book club, which we might just touch on next, is that it's just such a gentle process. You know, you will go through ups and downs. It's not an easy thing to write a book. It's almost like, particularly if you're writing a story, it's about reliving the trauma. It's about revisiting the challenges. But it's also a really healing journey, but healing from a different perspective. And I think one of the beautiful things about working with Deb as your publisher is that because she has that counselling background, she's able to assist in that. And that was huge, absolutely huge for me, because my book is really emotional. It is really traumatic. It touches on some really big themes. So Deb, I'm so grateful that you did have that background. You've done a lot of Louise Hay work. And I think that's kind of another thing that attracted me to you. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Very early on in my counselling years, I knew I wanted to work with principles that Louise Hay had used. And then a girlfriend of mine went and did, you can actually go and do teacher training. And as soon as I found out about it, I knew I had to go and do it. So I did, and used to do, so I did a couple of workshops, but what I used to do was actually use that with individuals in my counselling. I did a lot of inner child workshops with them. So one-on-one for an hour and a half to 2 hours, taking them through a particular process, getting in touch with that inner child. That was my absolute favourite of all the work that I think I've done, was that. Another was a forgiveness process that I would take people through. And they were just all processes out of her Heal Your Life workshop, which is a 2-day workshop. And I would just apply whatever was appropriate for people who presented in front of me. Really, everything is about forgiveness and letting go, acceptance, letting go. And Louise Hay just had a very simple way of approaching that, very honest way of approaching that, which I appreciated. I loved the insight that I had with people who presented in front of me, if there was stuff going on for them physically, because I just know Louise Hay's list pretty much backwards from back to front. You know, if someone turned up and you know, they were having earaches or you know, headaches or whatever, I would take that on board as to what was happening for them, what the emotions were likely beneath that. And that was actually really helpful in helping people to get to the bottom of what was going on for them. And the other thing about Louise Hay was the fact that she wrote her first book, which was The List, in her late 40s, and started Hay House in her 60s. And she's just been she's been a great role model for me. So yeah. So I was 49 when I first published Domestic Detox was the book that we published, and then later that same year I published The 6 Keys to Happiness, which was based on basic principles of resilience and the things that underpin happiness. So that's my Heal Your Life book, I guess, by comparison. And then, going into publishing, I would love to have a business the size and with the influence that Hay House does. Don't see how that can happen right now, but I'd be open to that. I think she's left a wonderful legacy. And just to be to be able to access as I say, the honesty. So the vulnerability, I think, is probably the thing. Her ability to be vulnerable made space for other people to be vulnerable, and that's probably the essence of her strength and her influence.
Oh, that's beautiful, Deb. I completely agree with you. And I really do honestly think that, you know, what you're doing is just such a beautiful thing. I really do.
Thanks, Dom.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
I'm going to open it up to questions. If you do have a question, then you are more than welcome to ask now.
Hey. I did put my questions in the chat, but I think some of that's sort of been answered. But do you ever read, is it called a manuscript? I only really know from, what's that movie with Sandra Bullock?
Oh, The Proposal?
Yes.
I love that movie. Yes.
It's a really good movie. I do like it.
Yeah. Ryan Reynolds is a bit yum.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So I'm just wondering, do you ever read a manuscript and go, no, this isn't for me, this isn't for my publishing company?
I have had people approach me and talk to me about what they would like to publish, and I've said no. You need to go here or there. That's not me. And I'm very aware, which is why I was exploring that connection that I had with that, you know, the person I mentioned to start with, because he was just so far from, you know, the sort of person I would normally work with, and I won't work with someone that I think, how can I put this? Very simply, someone that's not aligned. I won't work with someone that's not aligned.
If you have really funny hair, it's very hard to get her to publish your book.
Trish and I are very aligned. Too much so at times, I think. We're both a bit naughty. But see, I've got a purple scarf on, Trish. That's for you.
I do think, Jenny, that you know, it would be worth a chat to Deb if it is something that you're looking at, because I think Deb is very different to other publishers. She really does hold space. I mean, only if that's something that you're interested in pursuing. But yeah, sorry, go ahead and ask any other questions that you have.
Well, I think the other sorry.
Yeah, you go.
I think the other question was answered, really. It was just wanting to know the process, which you did explain, and then who does the edit and proofread. But then you said, yeah, there's editors for that.
Yeah, so my daughter works with me. She is an editor.
Oh, good.
So, but I also have access to a couple of other people that are happy to do proofreading as well. You meet some interesting people along the way, and I think this just authors in particular, and people in this industry, I find them very interesting. They all have a unique way about them, and most of the people that I'm working with are forging their own trail in some way, and that really appeals to me. I find people very interesting when they're unique and doing their own thing, and you don't have to be loud about it, but I certainly I have all the time in the world for anyone that's got something to say, and especially when they're the only one that's saying it. I'll be right there beside them while they're doing it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does. I just wonder, like, are there ever any topics that you're afraid of?
Oh, good question, Jenny.
That is a good question.
Yeah.
Honestly, the first thing that comes to mind is, this might even sound strange, vaccination.
It doesn't sound strange. I worked in childcare.
Yeah, I won't touch it with a barge pole.
Yeah.
So, and that actually came up when we were doing domestic detox, because a lot of the people that we work with at some stage have questioned vaccination or stopped vaccination, and I'm all for, you know, everyone needs to make those decisions for themselves. I am not for telling other people what should be done. So, and even that is important, because in everything else, I encourage people to write from what they know. Don't be telling people what you think they should know. Just write what you know. So, you know, use your I statements. I did this, I'm doing that, I learned this, and you can never get it wrong, and you can never get into trouble, because your experience is your experience. And no one can say, yeah, because no, you're just saying I all the time.
Yeah. Thank you. I was more thinking along the lines of racial advocacy and that sort of thing, but yeah,
go for it. Yeah, there's not enough books. There really is not enough books. And people say, it used to be in traditional publishing that, you know, if someone's already written the book on anxiety, we don't want another one. But that's bullshit, putting it bluntly, because
no, I like it.
Well, everyone has, they hear things, they see things through different filters. So when you can say something to me, and then Deb can say the same thing to me in her way, and I will hear Deb say it, and I won't hear what you've said.
Yeah.
That's about me. And, you know, there's so many people out there struggling with anxiety. We need more perspectives on that. We need more life experience shared around that, around what works and what doesn't work. And it needs to be from experience. So just whatever it is you have to say. And that's the other thing. If you're called to do it, bloody well get up and do it. You know, don't sit back and think, oh, you know, I'll just wait for the door to open. You know, you make your own friggin' door and you push through it, and you write what you need to write. And then the journey really starts, because once you put yourself out there, then you're vulnerable. Then you're open to criticism, you're open to judgment, and that's when your character really starts to develop. I think that was the one thing that you did mention before, Jess, is that part in the process when you go, oh shit,
yep,
I'm out there now for everyone to see.
Yep.
Pushing through that is a difficult thing, but my God, I have so much respect for everyone that pushes through it. I really do.
And just on that, Jenny, I think when you said that, racial advocacy, and please don't feel swayed, but I just felt like it, you know, like a collaboration project on that would just be phenomenal. Like, particularly from my perspective, being a white woman of a biracial child, do you know what I mean? Like, my perspective is going to be completely different to a black woman who has, you know, half white children. You know what I mean?
And there's, you know, Aboriginal people that are very much in the know and have been brought up Aboriginal in comparison to Aboriginal people that have been brought up by mostly white families, and the racism and expectations that have been forced onto them. There are so many different sides of it. And all these people saying that racism in America is so prevalent, but we don't have a problem in Australia. And I just feel like screaming.
Hello. Not true. You know, it's very timely, and I can hear the passion in your voice, darling. I hope you're going to move on this and do something. Yeah.
I do wonder sort of what's the longest it's taken someone from when they've approached you to when they've actually finished a book?
How long had you been writing yours, Jess?
Oh, do I have to answer that, Deb?
Years. Many people are writing for years. What's the longest?
9 years ago, Jenny. This book was honestly, I started literally writing chapters of this book 9 years ago.
Yeah.
So
and everything does have a time.
Yeah.
And it will fall into place when it's meant to.
Mm-hmm.
But there's just a fire under you right now, and you need to make space for that to turn into whatever it needs to be.
Yes, I feel like my sharing on Facebook can only go so far.
That's right. Yeah, there's a bigger audience out there, and there's someone that wants to connect with you around that. You know, I so believe that. This is where Trish is really good, because and why, you know, I encourage Trish to keep doing what she's doing. And I big thing that Trish says that I absolutely love is it's selfish to keep your perspective and your knowledge and your story to yourself. And that's okay. It's okay to make that decision. But if you've got something to say, I actually think it's really important that you do it. And I can see in you, there's a burning.
Well, I think Trish might be to blame for my burning for writing.
She's been fanning it.
Well, my first woman's wine time was when Trish spoke. Okay. And so I ended up writing a chapter for the compilation.
Oh,
and
yay.
I think I did it in, how long did it take me, Jess? 2 days?
Oh, not long at all. And it was, I mean, Trish will agree with me here. It was pretty powerful, wasn't it, Trish?
Awesome. It is really awesome.
Yeah. And wonderful. It's funny that all came together because I talk a lot about breadcrumbs and Deb, you know that too. And it was funny that Jenny was she was going through a difficult time. And I was like, Jenny, you know, I think I pulled a card or something for you. And
you did, yes.
And, you know, I was like, you need to come to, you know, Women's Wine Time. And then it just so happened that Trish was the next week. And then Trish was looking for authors. And then, you know, she wrote a chapter and then one thing led to another. And now, Deb, you know, you're on you're being interviewed tonight. And I just think that divine timing is just beautiful. Like, so great.
Always perfect.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yep.
Sorry, Deb, did you have any questions that you wanted to ask tonight?
Yeah, just a quick one. Two. One for Trish. Did you have all of the authors you needed for the compilation on Touched by Suicide?
I'm looking for about 4, maybe 5 more.
Okay. It's just that I have a client who happens to be an Aboriginal woman who lost her son.
I love that.
And it's quite an in-depth story. And I mentioned it to her last time you mentioned it, which must have been about 3-4 weeks ago. But I thought rather than, I said, think about it. So I'll go back to her and let her know the door's still open.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be
closed doors. I never closed doors.
Yeah. And sorry, go ahead.
No. I was just going to say that'd be an incredible addition from another perspective.
Yes. It's an incredible story too, because there's all kinds of I did a mediumship session for her, and let's just say there was a big mystery surrounding the whys, and she thought she knew, but we needed to sort out actually what happened. And let's just say it also involved a church school and some things that shouldn't have happened. So it was pretty unreal story, but that's her story to tell. So I'll just let her know the door is still open. And then, yeah, that's what I was going to say. You kind of answered my question, Deborah, because so many books, like my whole story, I've got 3/4 written, but I didn't want to finish the book until I felt like I had a really positive ending. And I'm kind of there now. So, but again, it's from my transition. I went from being an entrepreneur for 10 years to being a consultant in the corporate world and in government, and not listening to my spiritual team, and then getting really, really like almost critically ill because I didn't listen, and now stepping fully out of that world and into the spiritual world. And thanks, but it's been 5 years since I kind of got spat out because I was so sick. But again, I didn't know, because there's been so many stories written about spirituality. I just didn't know whether, how much homework do I need to do to see if somebody's written a book like mine.
No one can write a book like yours.
Yeah, but you've got a phenomenal story, and I'm not just saying that. I can't wait.
I gotta say, the last quarter of the book will be much more fun to write than the first 3/4. Yeah.
Your
it's a hell of a
story
journey.
is really profound in the sense that I think so many people go through that. So many people have, you know, that knowing but not trusting.
Yeah. And burning out.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, that's a huge thing. Huge thing.
Yeah.
And feeling like, you know, you need to get gratification from your job. And how much gratification are you getting from your job right now? Like you are phenomenal.
Oh, thank you.
I'm so inspired by how much you've transformed and how busy and how much you've stepped into your purpose and your power. And I need to, we need to connect because I need another session.
Thanks, Jess. Thank you so much. And thanks, Deborah and Trish, for answering my questions and for sharing your knowledge.
Sorry, Deb, I'll let you answer that question that Deb just had because I just butted in. I'm sorry.
So I think I'd already answered it. I think Deb was just worried about whether, you know, another story on spirituality and on, you know, similar to her journey would be appropriate, but it's no one can write the story. They're all individual. They're all, and I get so something else about the authors that I do work with, you know, we're talking about being that bit of a rebel and wanting to change things or having needed to have changed something and get that out there. They're also wholehearted. They don't do things by halves. They put their whole selves into everything they do. And that brings a whole new flavour to a book. You know, it's not clinical, like you were saying, Jess, about how emotional your journey was, and you were sort of thinking, where did that come from? That was coming from you being wholehearted, you know, while you were writing. Instead of writing from up here, you're writing from here.
I completely agree with you there, Deb, because I have read over the book and I have honestly said, like, this isn't like, I'm not capable of that. And
yet.
Well, not even that. Like, some of the stuff that I read in that book, I'm like, that's profound. Like, where the heck did that come from? Do you know what I mean? Like, some of that stuff in Africa, because I'm very much about automatic writing, and some of the stuff that's come from that is like, that's not of me, that's through me.
Yeah.
And I think that's, you know, that's a really precious thing. Yeah.
Yep. I think some of the most profound things that I have, ideas that I've come up with, even moving in this direction, they've not come from me. You know, they've come early in the morning before my brain's gone into gear. It's been inspiration, and the things that the inspiration that I've followed has always gone further and had a bigger impact than anything I ever thought of myself. I think something that sort of drives me too is everyone goes through pain of some sort, and there's just some depths of pain for me. I feel the need for people to tell their story. I feel the need for them to get it out there so they can then connect with other people that have a similar experience or a recognition. It's very much about connection for me. Book writing, book reading, it's two sides of the same coin, and very much about connection and deep connection, which is why I guess I am attracted to the non-fiction as opposed to the fiction.
Well, I think that's a beautiful way to end it. I'm sorry, ladies, we've gone way over time, but tonight has been really profound, and I think we've, you know, I know I've got so much out of it, and I think for all of you people who are thinking of writing a story, or you feel like you have a story inside you, that's answered so many of your questions. Deb, thank you so much for being a guest tonight. I really do appreciate your time and your openness and your knowledge. I'm really appreciative. Thank you so much.
Yep, my pleasure. Yep, thank you for having me. And
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Tonight was awesome. I'm really grateful. just to close tonight, I just want to invite you all. I am running a Love Yourself Deeper challenge, which starts live round on the 20th of July. It is the only time I'm going to be offering it for free. So if you feel that you need to love yourself deeper, then jump over to my website and register at www.jesssermak.com and just go to Love Yourself Deeper Challenge, register your details, and I will shoot you an email with all the details. It's going to be a very sacred space. It's going to be a very incredible journey. And it's all about loving ourselves deeper, because we can't manifest those huge goals and those huge dreams if we don't love ourselves and have deep gratitude for ourselves. So I would just be honored if you join me for that challenge. Thank you all for joining us tonight. For each of you who are live with us tonight, I'm so grateful. I feel so blessed. And for those listening in on the recording, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Des.
Next week we have another very special guest, which is Marnie, who we were speaking about earlier. She's just published her book with Deb, Dreams, Visions and Intuitions. I've read it. I got to be one of the very special people that got to read it before anyone else does. It's a phenomenal book. It's mind-blowing. You won't want to miss Marnie next week. She just brings this peace and this gorgeous essence about her. So join us next week for Women's Wine Time, 7 p.m. Wednesdays. Until next week, take care. See you later.
Thanks, Steph. Bye.